Welcome into the Baseball Insiders. I am your host, Adam Weinrib, joined as always by fan-sided MLB insider Robert Murray. We are back. It's been 2 weeks. I forgot I had a podcast. Maybe I'll remember by the end of the show. We're coming up on September call-ups, waiver claims, last-minute roster adjustments before playoff rosters got to be locked, the schedule release, the Mets made a big move calling up Jonah Tong. We will cover it all, plus your questions and more. And here to talk me through it is fan-sided MLB insider Robert Murray, as he is every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Robert, how you doing?
I'm great, man. It's good to have you back. You were missed, although Thomas, he did a fantastic job in your absence. Yeah. So shout out to Thomas for joining us. But it's good to be back to normal. Have my guy here. A lot to talk about. You did miss the Bubba Chandler call up, which good job. We've been talking about that for a year. And the 1 week that you're gone, he gets called up. But anyways, there's other stuff to talk about too. So I'm jacked for that. Should be a good time. Adam Weinrib, welcome back. How you doing? Happy Wednesday.
I'm doing good. Happy Wednesday. Yeah, very transparently, Bob Nutting and Ben Cherington waited to make that move until I had departed. But I'm sure Thomas's take on it was great. I'm glad everybody enjoyed the show. Definitely fun to have him on board. We'll definitely have him back on again. And it was good to be in San Diego, LA, Anaheim, Disneyland. I don't know if anybody's a Disney adult. I mean, that place was absolutely teeming with people on the Monday. It's already Halloween season at Disneyland. So which to me, that's unforgivable, but good to all of you. If you enjoy that, then congrats to you all. Please join us again next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Every Wednesday, we're going to change the schedule again as we head into the postseason, but stick with us once a week. Private Q&As in the Discord with Robert Murray, 3 o'clock Eastern on Thursdays. So join us in the Discord. Hit the join button below this video to become a member. Subscribe to the Moonshot if you have not, our weekly baseball email newsletter where the fan-sided MLB team and Robert Murray and myself break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, behind-the-scenes info. You can read all our content and more on the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com/baseball-insiders. Eric Cole's prospect columns on Tuesday. Robert's work, my weird stuff. Might have an interview running later this week, so stay tuned. Read that feed. An interview with a famous Eagles fan, a Philadelphian, perhaps a rapper of some repute. So
that rolls on me, although I'm not a rapper or famous. So I am an Eagles fan, though. So
you imagine if I just teased that? I was like, I'm going to have an interview running, and it's with Robert Murray. That'd be great, but we're also talking right now, so no need to tease that, of course.
No, exactly. Go Birds, though. I will say that much. Yep.
Yeah. Go Begrudge and Go Birds. Wearing the green for Go Birds right now. They're an extremely good team. And as the person I was talking to brought up, their over-under wins total is 10.5 right now. They're going to win 13 games in their sleep. So I would probably go ahead and hammer that. To the comments, yes, you can vent about Anthony Volpe here if you'd like. Anthony Volpe just made 2 outs in a 77-pitch inning for the Washington Nationals. The Yankees only made 3 outs in an inning. He made 2 of them. So feel free to vent. We will answer all of your questions and more as the show goes on. We've got some predictions, some September call-up thoughts, couple bits of news in the schedule release. I want to talk Jonah Tong first because we get a lot of Tong questions on the prospect show. We talked about him yesterday. I think we predicted he'd be a September call-up, and then he was by end of day. The Mets are scuffling, but probably the best thing about the Mets over the past couple of weeks has been the arrival of Nolan McLean. Now they add Tong to their revamped rotation entering September. 2 more wins over the Phillies at home so far this week, which extends their Citi Field winning streak to 9. That's big if those are 2 teams that are going to lock horns in the playoffs. Thoughts on Tong, thoughts on the way that the Mets have tried to steer out of the skid by giving some of these kids who really deserve it a shot in the rotation.
Yeah, they needed some added life into the rotation and just on that roster overall, because inconsistent is probably the best word to describe the Mets this season. We even heard David Stern say that in an interview with John Heyman. That's exactly how to describe the Mets, is inconsistent. And getting a bolt of life into that team was necessary. They did so in calling up their top pitching prospect before, and now they're doing the exact same thing now with Jonah Tong. And he is someone who's been fantastic in the minors. The numbers he's put up, I want to make sure I get these right because I'm going to pull them up right now. In his last 19 outings, he had a .99 ERA, allowed only 1 home run. Batters were averaging a mere 137 against him. He was just flat out dominant. He's got a 5-pitch arsenal. He's mostly a 4-seam fastball kind of guy. He also mixes in a changeup, a slider, a cutter, and a curveball. So, I mean, he throws a bunch of different stuff. Does not throw the cutter overly very much by any means, but he is a guy who can make a huge difference for that team. And they're getting to the pitching on the right track. And what's one thing you can never really question with the Mets or just with a David Stearns run team is their ability to maximize pitching. And it's been a struggle this year. Frankie Montas has not worked out how they expected at all. Seems like that's been the case for both New York teams.
Yeah, he worked out how I expected, but David Stearns, one area where I know more than David Stearns, projecting Frankie Montas.
No, exactly. And that part did not work out, but they're 7-3 in their last 10 games. They're kind of sort of trending in a better direction. So we'll see if that maintains. But I was asking a fan-sided column or the moonshot. I'm going to give a little tease to the moonshot of what team has the best chance of overcoming a multi-game deficit in the standings. And that ruled out the Padres and that ruled out the Mariners. So I went with the New York Mets, and the Phillies not having Zach Wheeler for the rest of the year played a big part in that. Jordan Romano's his struggles this year have been very bad. Nick Castellanos has not been good. Obviously, the Phillies got like an elite closer at the deadline, so that helps for sure. But this is why the Mets went out and got Juan Soto, and you pair that with some of these other guys, and you get their high-end young pitching in there as well. Seems like they kind of have the ingredients. And you also got to remember too, last year, that was a nice little mumble by me. I did a good job there. But they ended up making a nice run in the postseason. They got past the Brewers somehow, and they ended up, they made some noise in the postseason. I could see them doing it once again.
Yeah, it was veering into insurmountable territory until they got the Phillies on their turf this week. And now it's down to 5, could be 4 later today. So if you're looking at a team that could bounce back, you look at a team like the Mets that is adding talent as the season goes on. Tong is up, Lincecum light, hopefully, a guy I definitely am interested in watching. Bubba Chandler came up while I was again away. They waited for me. So that takes 2 really exciting names off the board. I know with such limited resources and roster spots this September, you only get 2. So a lot of teams are just going to use them on relievers and just reinforce things and try to stay healthy and soak up innings. But anyone else exciting that you predict could come up down the stretch now that we've already gotten these couple, and McLean, I would categorize here, out of the way a little bit early?
Yeah, I would go with, I don't know if he'll ultimately be called up. I bet you he probably has a good chance of doing so. But I'll go with Andrew Painter. And he is a guy, we talked about Philadelphia losing Zach Wheeler for the rest of the season, and getting a guy like Painter back into the major leagues coming off the injury, that would be a big difference maker. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get from him by any means, but getting Painter, I think, would make a lot of sense for them and get him some major league time, get him, the upside there is tremendous. He's not going to be Zach Wheeler by any means. Like, that's just not the reality. He's got a chance to be very good. And there was a reason why the Phillies were just not eager to discuss him at all at the trade deadline. And there's a lot of teams that were asking about him, and they signaled I think everyone or almost all of them that he was not going to end up being discussed. So I'm going to go with Painter. I think Gasser's a good call from the Brewers there. Kyle Harrison is an interesting one because obviously he was traded for Rafael Devers. He was one of the key prospects or key players who was moved to get Devers into San Francisco from Boston. He's not necessarily ready quite yet. There was some discussion that maybe he could end up being a spot starter for them within like the last week, but that was not the case there. But his time is coming. I just don't think it's like imminent like today, but I could see that happening in a not so distant future. So I think that's a good shot by you, RG.
Yeah, and the Red Sox are going to have a little emptiness there for the time being while they work on the Walker Buehler bullpen experiment or whatever that ends up being. So, Richard Fitz, maybe the injury not quite as serious as they thought, but either way, they're juggling a lot of bulk guys, and there will be a move made in Boston, I would imagine, whether it is Harrison or it is maybe a slightly higher upside, higher impact guy like Tolley. You're getting the clock going there. See your comments. These are some great comments. We're going to get to a few of these in a little bit, but good opportunities to touch on some of the waiver wire stuff. Because I wonder, We have seen a little bit of movement in recent days. We did see Andrew Heaney go 1/3 of an inning past that first bonus, and then the Pittsburgh Pirates go, yoink, no thanks, no more of that, please. So Heaney was a waiver wire candidate I had my eyes on. They DFA him yesterday instead. Obviously the right call for Pittsburgh across the board, converting him to the bullpen and then DFAing him. But another reason to view their trade deadline not being able to get something for Heaney slightly unfavorably, although not like the Heen dog was lighting it up at that time anyway. Carlos Santana then yesterday placed on outright waivers. We have a comment asking if he could latch on with a contender or not much interest. The Boston Red Sox made their desperation for a first baseman so clear, didn't go into the trade deadline, felt weird, but then Nate Lowe, a perfect fit, fell into their laps while I was on vacation, and he has gotten a hit in, let me check my notes, every single at-bat since joining the Boston Red Sox. So that worked out, but that takes a Santana landing spot off the table. I know Drew Cook, our Reds writer, knows that Santana is a Tito Francona favorite, kind of has this suspicion that he might end up a Cincinnati Red as they look to chase down the Mets. But thoughts on Santana specifically and anyone else who might hit the waiver wire in the next couple of days who could make an impact?
Yeah, and Santana's a really good shot for the Reds. I think with Drew, he did a nice dot connecting there. And I would expect him to draw plenty of interest. Like, he's a productive player, is not necessarily what he once was by any means. But he's also a very respected veteran. And that's something that the Pirates saw in him, the Brewers saw in him. And he's everywhere that he's been, he's made a very good impression. And the fact that Francona has a good relationship with him and speaks highly of him, I would think that would absolutely be worthy of a conversation there at Cincinnati. So my guess is he's going to be claimed, and whoever claims him is going to have to take on the remainder of his salary for the rest of the season. And if he's not claimed, then he can just stay where he is without any issue, unless he gets DFA'd afterwards or whatever. But no, this is something that happens more often than you would think. At this time of the year, I remember, I think it was a couple of years ago when the Angels started doing their sell-off, and I found out that they put Tyler Anderson on waivers. I was talking to other executives around the league, and I was like, should I report this? Like, it feels like it's noteworthy. And they were like, no, like, that's pretty standard. Like, I wouldn't write that if I was you. And then all of a sudden they put everybody on their roster on waivers, and then that became news. And I remember I found out about it, and then all of a sudden I got the Jeff Passan notification, which, damn you, Jeff Passan, for doing that to me. It's more often he's done that to me more than I'd like to admit. But anyways, I got a little bit of a side tangent there, which I'm known for on this podcast for sure. But there have been other players who have been placed on waivers, and I do think one that would be really intriguing would be Tommy Pham. And that's not necessarily going to be like, whoa, like Tommy Pham, like difference maker. Mm-hmm. But I've said it on this podcast before. The recent spots that Pham has been in, he has made a tremendous impression, especially in Pittsburgh. The Pirates love him. Like, they speak very highly of him as a player, as a person, and the example that he set at, like, for the young players in the locker room. And he was not moved at the deadline. And again, I don't think there was much interest in him or Heaney or some of these other guys. And I think possibly putting him on waivers would be something that they would have to talk about pretty seriously internally, and like whether or not that's the money saved there, which is not going to be much, is worth losing him in that clubhouse. So we'll see there. He's productive. He's a good player. He's a tough guy for sure, based on some of his previous comments. But he's one that I'm watching for sure. I mean, there's some others as well, but I think he's the one that I think. I mean, you never know.
Yeah. Pham has been speaking lately, though, in Pirates fans point this out as speaking like a guy who thinks he's coming back next year. Like, not just a Pirate for 1 year, a 4-month rental. He's got some long-ranging quotes that seem to indicate he's fitting in nicely in that clubhouse. And for as much as the Pham deal was maligned when he hit 170 in April, 293, turning it on in May a little bit, 302 with an 861 OPS in June, 1043 OPS and hitting 388 in July. Everybody noted that he was hot at that point. And the numbers have slipped a little bit this month, but still 3 bombs. So you'll take that production, and according to what you're saying, they'll take that leadership. So probably an unnecessary risk there to let him go.
Yeah, I would imagine they probably would not let him go for that exact reason. And yeah, they value him a lot in Pittsburgh. And yeah, I mean, if you would have said that a couple of years ago, I think some people would have been like, "What are you talking about?" But I'm not kidding you. Everywhere since, and I would think even before that too, considering some of the relationships that I've heard that fan has. He's really respected. People really like him around the league, and he's made I cannot stress it enough. He's made a great impression on that team. So. Yeah, that's a reunion that I'm watching the offseason. I can't imagine it's a foregone conclusion. But both sides like each other. Yeah, that's as best as I can say it.
The Pirates playing like a playoff team at home and a 115 loss club on the road. So the more you can try to roll that home attitude over into road games, get veteran leadership, the more it'll help. And bringing up pitchers like Chandler and Ashcraft does not hurt either. Definitely want to talk schedule release, which Rob Manfred seemed to coordinate yesterday, almost down to the second of the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce engagement news, which was kind of incredible, but we don't want to get it lost in the shuffle. Plenty of interesting quirks already. Every team fan base immediately goes to that schedule to see, okay, when do we go to the West Coast? What's the most annoying road trip of the year? When do we play our rivals? Yankees and Red Sox playing the first April series since I think pre-COVID. It felt like they were packing them all into the summer post-COVID, and now back into April at Fenway. Yankees-Giants opening night, March 25th. Ridiculously early opening day for everybody else on March 26th. The Phillies and Twins in the Field of Dreams game. 6 A's home games in Vegas. And if you're not watching the A's lately, Shea Bangaliers and Nick Kurtz and the boys are cooking. So the A's are watchable television at this point for sure. Mm-hmm. What weird quirk of the MLB schedule caught your eye the most?
First of all, I would say the coinciding with the engagement of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. I remember, it sounds like I live at the gym, but in the mornings I go to the gym, and I was doing my thing, and all of a sudden I looked at my phone and I got the Adam Schefter notification that they were engaged. Mm-hmm. And then next thing I know, I see MLB's tweet or the press release, I should say, that they announced the schedule. And I'm just like, oh man, like as far as like trying to promote the schedule, that could not have been any worse by any means. But I think the Yankees and the Red Sox one was definitely something that caught my attention. The A's with their schedule as well. And what was I going to say? I was going to say something. The Field of Dreams game. Mm-hmm. The overall how that ended up getting reported or misreported, because I think there was somebody who had, was it the Twins, and
I think the Mets were involved and are now
the part that to me made me like, can you imagine being a Mets fan and buying tickets to that game and then all of a sudden finding out it's actually I don't know if the tickets are available for it or not, but that was one of my big takeaways. It's like something like that, you got to be really careful. And that I hope that didn't cost somebody like tens of thousands of dollars, because that would have been a pretty big whoops. But what about you, Adam? What stood out? I mean, you listed a bunch of them, but I'm curious if there was anyone that stood out to you.
Well, I know I have Phillies people in my life who are overjoyed that they're going to the Field of Dreams, and they've got. I had someone tell me, a family, whatever, tangential. Somebody said they wanted to sell a kidney to go to this game, so I want to make sure they don't have to do that. If anyone can give me a ticket that costs money and not kidneys, that would be great. We can hook that up. But the Field of Dreams game was my favorite event while it was around, other than the fact that Zach Britton blew it when the Yankees were in it. But I can't wait for that. And I think there are probably some more creative angles coming from MLB. Like, I don't think they announced the Bristol showdown last year when they announced the full schedule. So I would imagine there are some more quirks to come. Count me among those who's excited to see what happens to the A's in Vegas. I know it's just a different minor league stadium, but that is a team that's got some genuine on-field momentum, some young talent, a bit of a core locked up. And you'd think that, in the wake of the Mason Miller trade, the J.P. Sears exile, and sort of a depressing trade deadline and a long line of them, that maybe they lose some of that energy they'd gained. But you watch an A's game lately, they're having a ridiculously exciting series right now with the Tigers. I want to see them continue to harness that energy, and I want to see what that looks like next summer.
No, I think that's totally spot on. And sticking with the A's, it's good to finally talk about them having like a legit core. It seems like every year we've been talking about them being like a seller, just or being so far out of the postseason contention with no real hope. And Brent Rooker was kind of the start of it, and there were some other pieces there too for sure. But they got Rooker, they got Kurtz, they got all these guys on this roster, and it's nice to finally have them have hope, especially going into being in Vegas. Like that's going to be an absolute draw, and they're going to go from having tens of people in the stands to having just probably a crowd full of people. At least I would hope so. I wonder what kind of fan base they're ultimately going to have, just because there's so much travel that happens going to Vegas, and just what the crowd overall could look like in terms of like different jerseys. But yeah, it's a good time to be an A's fan. They still got plenty of work to do, obviously, and moving a guy like Mason Miller and JP Sears, that hurt, but that was a return for them that they just could not turn down. Like that, the Padres, they gave up a lot in that deal for sure, and the A's made it clear that they were only going to be willing to move either one of those guys if the return included some of those top prospects. They got there, and it's only going to add to their core overall. But I'm telling you, the A's they're not going away anytime soon, and that foundation that they have, especially now, is really showing up and showing why people in that organization have long been high on this group of players. Well, Kurtz was just drafted, but yeah, they got some pieces for sure.
Yeah, Langoliers is my guy, maybe my favorite catcher in baseball. So excited to see what goes down there. We are going to sign off for the day. We really appreciate everybody joining us. One last comment. I see you asking me to react to the division realignment if the Mets, Phillies, Red Sox, and Yankees end up in one division. My quick reaction is no. Everyone, I love the Phillies. They're my favorite NL team. They're sort of my side fandom. So if that happened, I'd be really mad. And I don't think I would be the only one. I think you lose a lot of pretty special limited rivalries here, and no Subway Series. Really? In the World Series, you're going to eliminate the possibility of a Subway Series World Series? No, thank you. I don't think they're going to do that. The Yankees and Mets play enough anyway. So we'll see. I'm into creative realignment, but not that. Thank you for joining us, everybody, today. Subscribe to The Moonshot if you have not. Fansided.com/baseball-insiders. Join us tomorrow in the Discord at 3 o'clock Eastern for an exclusive Q&A with Robert Murray. You can always bother Robert, myself, Eric Cole, the prospect guru, in there between shows, as long as you become a member of the Baseball Insiders on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Hit that join button below. Subscribe to us on all podcast platforms. And until next week, Eric and I will be here Tuesday at noon Eastern. Robert is off next week, but I will be here Wednesday at 3 o'clock Eastern with a fun guest co-host. So stay tuned for that. We thank everyone for joining us today. Until next time, Robert Murray, take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.